because you keep cutting in and around, and she's always in some stage of or she's dead, and it's very frustrating.
Welcome to SinCast, presented by Cinemasins.
All right, everybody, welcome to the SinCast. This is Chris Atkinson from Cinemasins, joined as always by the voice of Cinemasins, Jeremy Scott.
Hello.
Hello.
Sorry, that was boring.
No, that was fine. And from Music Video Sins, Barrett Share.
Zubaz!
Ooh, that's like how you say shoes in Spanish.
Yes.
No, it's not.
I think it's Zapatos, isn't it?
It's zapatos.
I just remember Zubaz, the pants.
I had a pair of those.
80s.
I had a pair of those.
Yeah, I had
went into the 90s.
Weirdly, Cincinnati Bengals Zubaz. I wasn't a fan of their team.
I thought it was Zubaz.
All right. I
mean, tomato. It doesn't really matter. Those pants were terrible.
Guys, what makes you really angry out there in the world?
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
I'm as mad as hell!
You've never seen me very upset.
Who's got it? Are you pointing at me?
Sure.
Okay, I think golf is pretty racist.
Yeah. Let's start off the show.
And there are several layers to this, and if you want to do your own research, I encourage you to do so. Where to start? Go to a golf course and play a round of golf in America. And the ratio of white people to people of color is, Barrett, you've played golf, 95 to 5, 90 to 10.
Yes. Depending on which part of America you're playing in, you see, not to be stereotypical, but you see mainly white people and Asian American people that are out there.
And if you turn on the television and watch a PGA tournament, the ratio is a little better, but it's still like 75% white people. And this goes back a long, long way. The game has historically been specifically for white, rich people. And I made an observation to somebody the other day that, if I could afford to go play golf every single day, for like a year, which I guess maybe technically I could afford if I played at a cheap course. I can't afford the time, but if I could afford it money-wise, I think I'd be pretty damn good by the end of that year. I might even be able to enter a local tournament and place. And that the economics of golf makes it hard for people in poverty to crack into that game. And it's not the kind of game that your high school encourages or promotes like they do football or basketball or baseball. And so when I played high school golf, I played 2 different cities in Indiana. You could call Indiana fairly racist in the 80s if you want to. I'm not going to argue with you. But I don't remember more than 2 people of color competing in the 3.5 years I played high school golf. And, the Masters is a golf tournament called the Masters.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Augusta National only invited their first black member in 1990. The ratio there is the worst of all the ratios I've talked about. And I just think it's sad because I love playing the game. I've played twice in the last month, just getting outside, maybe coloring those experiences toward the positive. I'm not very good. I was in high school, but I'm not now. But it's a really fun game, and I wish it were accessible to more people. There's so much about it. I could probably point you in a bunch of different directions, but it's just long been a very racist game, and I wish that wasn't the case. I wish it was more accessible to people of color and people of all incomes. And it makes me mad. I'm not really yelling or ranting, but it's really frustrating. And that is the end. There you go.
I'll tell you what, I did back in that heyday of Tiger Woods, and everybody brings up, including in Get Out, hilariously brings up Tiger Woods whenever they talk about race in golf, right? But when Tiger Woods was winning absolutely everything from like 98 until 2002, revamped his swing, then started winning some more. I was playing a lot of golf in my local municipals at that time. And I saw, because that's all that I could afford, I saw a lot more African-American people out there just giving it a shot. You could tell they weren't polished. You could tell they hadn't played for very long. But because they could see somebody that looked like them out there and dominating, that I saw a lot more. And when I would be paired up and talk to some of them, they're like, yeah, man, Tiger did it. Why can't I? You know? Yeah. And I was like, that's very encouraging after he dropped off. Not only after he dropped off did general interest in golf go down, but also, man, there was nothing like the excitement that dude brought. Even the most demonstrable guys out there will give you like a little fist bump after a big birdie or something like that, and then calmly walk over to the thing. Tiger used to go fucking insane, man.
Yeah.
Like he's Tiger, over there dancing with the ball and everything, and he's over there like, Argh! Nobody was like that.
Happy Gilmore is the absurd end of the spectrum of what Tiger Woods actually... Like, Tiger Woods scared some of the people in the game when he started doing that, because the game has long been proper and gentlemanly and racist. Adam Sandler, I guarantee you, saw Tiger Woods and the way it made some people in the game nervous and said, what if we took that to the extreme? Like, somebody who does everything wrong. I love that movie, by the way. But yeah, I mean, he had a huge impact on the game, and that will last for a very long time. And I think there are a lot of young golfers of color that came to the game because of Tiger Woods. But if you look at the PGA itself, there aren't a lot of young black golfers. There are some Asian Americans, and then there are white people, and Tony Finau and Tiger Woods and
Harold Varner, and that's about it.
And Harold Varner, and I'm not. It's just, it's a game that I think is so fun and addicting that it's frustrating to see it limited, and that's all I really wanted to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm going to go with a movie rant. I was going to do a rant based on some news we had earlier this morning that Jeremy sent to us and everything, but I'm just going to go ahead and get into a movie rant. But these adventure movies that come out, there are two this year that I'm going to pick on: Onward and Scoob. Both of them have some sort of quest that the heroes have to go on to open something up magical, in some way. By the time the characters are done with it, though, and you go back and look at some of the things they have to do and everything, I always wonder, the person or people who set this thing up, what were they thinking? Well, what in the world were they thinking during this entire thing? Like, most of the time the movies make it where there's something, they make some part of the story work by having something happen, that helps them solve a riddle or something. In Onward, there's a point where they go into this room that starts filling with water, and they don't know how they're supposed to hit this lever on the bottom of the floor or whatever, so that another thing will open at the top. But I'm sitting there going, it's like they use their dad, who's just a pair of legs, basically. They use their dad, and the pair of legs goes down, and it hits the button, and it opens up the thing, and you're like, oh, cool, look at that. They used one of their disadvantages to an advantage. Mm-hmm. But I'm like, what if you didn't have a torso-less father?
That was the original title of the movie, by the way.
Torso-less father? Yeah. Like, what if you didn't have that? Are you supposed to have somebody who's like holding their breath while all the water fills in the entire room while your buddy goes through the opening? And then how are you supposed to get through once it gets to the top? Because it's going to close right back up. And so like it's fun in the movie because, hey, we figured out a way to make torsoless father not useless. And so it works that way. Scoob has the most ridiculous fucking bullshit of all time ever. In anything that's ever been created in any Indiana Jones movie, National Treasure, or anything, it's the worst fucking bullshit of all time. Alexander the Great and his dog have created a thing that you can open into the underworld to get his treasure. But first things first, you got to find 3 skulls of Cerberus around the world.
Yes. Oh, yes.
You got to find
those.
Yeah, they're scattered all over the world. You got to find that shit.
Like a Horcrux.
Yeah, it's like a Horcrux. Yeah. And you bring it to Greece, and you bring the 3 skulls to Greece, and the skulls open up the underworld. But guess what? Cerberus comes out of the underworld, trying to prevent you from getting the treasure and everything. Actually, not really, because the bad guy dastardly goes in and like takes a lot of the treasure while Cerberus is outside fighting innocent people.
Sweet
and
smooth.
And then you have I was like, well, how do we close this up? So like opening it up required Scooby-Doo's paw because he's a descendant of Alexander the Great's dog. That's how it opens. So you get the 3 skulls, and then you still need the descendant of Alexander the Great or his dog to open up the underworld. How do you close it? Oh, you need to find somebody who loves his dog. That's it. You got to find somebody who loves his dog. And
so Shaggy?
So it's Shaggy. And I'm like, going, so wait a minute. Everything required Alexander the Great's descendants, his dog's descendants and everything. But just some asshole stoner guy can fucking put his hand on this thing and close it. And like, and also, oh yeah, by the way, you lose somebody. One of either the human or the dog's going to be lost forever to the underworld. But not so fast. Not so fast. If you plead with the statue of Alexander the Great that shows up out of nowhere, that 5 minutes later, if you plead with it, you can get your friend back.
Alexander the Great.
I'm just sitting there like, okay, if you're in Alexander the Great shoes, and like I'm sitting there going, why would you put people through this? Why would you? How do you? What is this? What's the story there? I feel like the story there is more compelling than anything that you've made in the solving of the problem. I like and to also somehow have a deal with the underworld. Like, who do you contact for that? like you know what, guys? I need somewhere to put my treasure, but I don't want any asshole to get it. Does anybody know how I can contact people in the underworld and I can store it there? Like maybe they can charge interest. I don't know.
They might have Cerberus's cell.
Exactly. So, you know, a lot of times we watch these movies and we sit there and go, wow, that went really well with the story, and it's just an adventure, and it's kind of fun how they solve this and everything. Nobody ever thinks about how this shit was created in the first place. And anyway, that's my rant. That's a movie rant. I kind of like it.
Nice. All right. Well, I'm going to go off hand here, and I want to talk about some music just real quick. So recently, as of I think last week, Taylor Swift released an album that nobody had any idea was coming out called Folklore. Mm-hmm. All right. She just popped up on Twitter and said, hey, by the way, I wrote an album according to my hopes and dreams and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Said something like that. I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah.
And she showed the cover art and everything. She looked like the Man of the Woods type of thing. And I was like, folk music. All right. Taylor Swift doing folk music. Probably not the worst thing in the world. Probably not going to explode my nutsack or anything like that.
Nice.
And so
not going to have its way with you.
You know, it's
It's
amazing
not, no.
how many in remnants of Barrett's ball sack is everywhere around his house.
Yeah,
Because
seriously.
of
hey,
things
there's some right there.
things that just keep blowing his balls off everywhere, man. It's
They
unbelievable.
regenerate.
Yeah, they regenerate.
So the first single called Cardigan came out, the music video, and I watched it and I was like, damn, that's good. And then I watched it again. I was like, damn, that's really good. And then I was like, that's really not like anything that Taylor's done before. So downloaded the whole album, listened to it start to finish, and I was blown away. This is absolutely in contention for her best album, which I think is right now 1989. It's in the contention in that discussion, and it's in the discussion for best album of the year, I think. And it was written completely remotely. It was recorded completely remotely. It was mixed completely remotely. And this video that she did for Cardigan was acted and produced and everything completely remotely. I think doing that in this environment should count for extra. You know what I mean? Like it's pretty fucking amazing what she did. Not only did she competently put a record together, but she did an amazing record. I mean, I've been on record. There's been some great records out this year. The new Dua Lipa is really, really good. My favorite up until this point has been Fiona Apple's Fetch the Bolt Cutters.
Didn't she do that one all in her house too? That one?
Yes, it was recorded in her house. This was before quarantine, but it was recorded.
So she was
in
doing
her
that
house.
Anyway.
Yeah. Weekend had a decent one. Run the Jewels had a new one come out this year too.
Yeah.
But I mean, this Taylor Swift stuff, I forgot what a good songwriter she is because she put out some crap a few years ago. That Reputation album, man, just soured me. I had to desour and sweeten after that that album. And I did, because Lover is generally a good album, and it's written in a nicer mentality, I think. You've got Me, and you've got You Need to Calm Down.
Calm down.
And then you've got that excellent title track, Lover, which is a precursor, really, to what she's doing here. Excuse me. It's a lot of lo-fi production from Aaron Dressner from The National, one of my favorite bands, and Jack Antonoff, who she's worked with in the past, hipster royalty that was in that band Fun. And it is awesome. There's only one like little folksy, like kind of guitar-centric acoustic ballad about this girl, Betty, and it's freaking awesome. I cannot recommend it enough. I think we all three are Taylor Swift fans. Maybe not super fans or anything like that, but when she does something good, it gets me excited.
Yeah.
Cardigan song is awesome.
I still haven't heard anything from the album yet. I haven't had a chance to.
There's a song called Exile that she does with Bon Iver, and there's a song called The One, which is the first track on the album, that are absolutely redonkulously good. So I recommend. That's not really a rant, but I wanted to bring in some happiness to you.
That's a positive rant. That's good.
All right, and we'll go on to some recommends and warns and warns.
Totes Amazeballs.
They're great.
It won the Academy Award.
Oh, for what?
For best movie ever made.
Let's do it. Wow, he's giving it his all.
Yeah, that's right. I'm going to go ahead and recommend a show that was foisted upon everybody back in the day. And, I guess in a way I was like, I'm not ready to watch this yet. I'm not ready to watch this. And plus, every time somebody's like, you got to watch this. This is really good. And it's in its like third season or whatever. I'm like, I'm just going to wait. And this was The Leftovers. This show, this show was in its third season when I started hearing stuff about it again. And everybody was like, oh my God, this is one of the greatest shows ever. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to start watching it now, just out of nowhere. But I will give it a chance at some point. So about a month or so ago, I started watching it. Season 1, I was like, I guess it's pretty good. It's pretty good. And you have a lot of people that that you like in here, like Justin Theroux, Liv Tyler, Amy Brenneman, Carrie Coon. All these people are great.
When did this come out?
I think 2014 was the first season.
Okay.
And it's a story that the setup is something we've heard before, where it's a bunch of people disappear from the planet, and nobody knows what happened to them. There was a show before this that was trying to sort of build on the Lost phenomenon back in the day, that had Joseph Fiennes in it. And
is it the 4400?
No, it's not that one. Although I think that has the same sort of deal, right? Isn't that more space alien abduction stuff though? 4400.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
It was a show where it was like time had stopped for
Flash Forward.
Flash Forward was what it was called. There was a show that had built up. It's one of those classic cases of a show where it had built up momentum with its first 8 or 9 episodes, but they didn't know if it was going to be any good. So they didn't make any more episodes. And then by the time like the 8th or 9th episode came out, there was like a 3 or 4 month lag before they came out with new episodes. And by that time, nobody gave a shit anymore. And so it didn't have a chance to really get to the finale. But The Leftovers has that same sort of deal. A bunch of people on the planet. I think they say 2% of the planet's population disappear. And some people have families where they're all intact. Some have families where they've only lost one. And in the case of Carrie Coon's family, she lost everybody. And so mainly it's the first season is about coping and sort of the, we're trying to pick up the pieces. The second season is about moving on. Like they've sort of accepted it, but there's this town called Miracle in Texas where nobody disappeared, and people are trying to move to this town. And Carrie Coon and Justin Theroux and all these characters move to this town. And so the second season is all about that. And there's a really awesome mystery that they throw in here. Anything where they throw Regina King in is really is awesome these days. There's a scene between Carrie Coon and Regina King in the second season that's just breathtaking. That's just two masters sort of, going head to head in a scene. It's not an argument. It's just more of a talk back and forth. And then the third season is where they sort of really, the second season they loosen up a bit. The third season they really loosen up, and it's only 8 episodes. It comes to a conclusion. Carrie Coon, one of the best performances in a TV series ever in the third season, didn't get nominated for the Emmy. Got nominated for Fargo that same year, but didn't get nominated for The Leftovers. She has a scene that will grip your attention for 20 to 25 minutes, I think is how long this thing goes, towards the end of the series. And it's really well worth watching. I would say that some of you may try to watch this on the first season and be like, I don't know. It's pretty good. I think it's pretty good. Watch the second and third seasons. That's where it really, really, jumps up. I think if you're interested enough after that first season, you should watch the rest of it.
Wow. All right.
Is this an HBO joint?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Did
you watch it, Jeremy?
Yes.
You watched the whole thing?
Yes. Well,
I didn't know that you watched it.
Remember I told that story about watching that crazy out of nowhere. I just watched an episode near the end of season 3 where he goes to an alternate reality to kill the president or some shit.
Yes.
And I went back a month after that and watched it. And I liked it a lot. You're right. I think the third season is the best. The second season was really good, and the first season shows the promise. But
I do remember you talking about that now, and there are 3 episodes that do that. Because there's something with Justin Theroux's character that's unique, and there also this brings in the great character actor Bill Camp, who you've seen before in a bunch of stuff. He's Jeremy, I know you saw, what was it, the night of?
Oh yeah,
he's the detective in the night
yeah.
of.
Okay,
he's in a ton of shit, but he's also on the leftovers. But those episodes where he goes and has to kill the president and whatever, those are the ones that are they really loosen up and they're able to do some comedy and everything.
Yeah.
In that particular episode, there's a point because Justin Theroux is playing the president and they're like telling him, you have to go to this place and you have to verify that it's you with the palm prints and all this other type of stuff. And there's the only other person who could come in there would be a twin brother, and that would be ridiculous. And of course there's a twin brother in the episode. and there's a point where he's going up to the thing and he's doing all this verification and everything. And his security guard goes, "All right, now you have to put your penis in that thing," or whatever. And it's like, what? He's like, there's this little contraption where he's got to put his penis in there.
I remember that now. That was a weird ass episode if you hadn't seen any of the show leading.
Oh my God. I can only imagine what that must have felt like when you first started watching that.
Yeah.
But I'm on board with this show. I recommend it.
All right. Excellent. Excellent. Can I have two? I'll do them. I'll do one now and one after, but I want two.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Because you've got opinions.
I got strong opinions. I'm going to start off with the negative ones.
Right.
And this is a warn, but this is a personal warn. I think most people love this movie. 2019's Little Women.
Oh yeah.
I watched this movie about 6 days ago. Okay, my wife is a huge fan of the Winona Ryder version with Christian Bale and Claire Danes, and that's the one that I'm most familiar with. But she was super excited about this one because it has Emma Watson and Saoirse Ronan and people who I just should stop pronouncing names. Tracy Letts is in this movie, Chris.
He is.
And so she was super excited, and she ended up making plans to see it with a friend and her mom. Went and see it with her friend. Didn't really like it that much. And then went and saw it again with her mom. Didn't really like it that much. Mm-hmm. And so flash forward to 5 days ago, I'm watching it on Stars or wherever the fuck. And I got so annoyed. I got up and walked into the other room to yell at her about this movie like 7 different times. Like this movie, I respect what Greta Gerwig was trying to do. I really do. On the main things I want to complain about is the shooting this or editing this out of order, which I think accomplishes a lot more to Greta Gerwig than it does to the viewer. And there are people who love this movie. My wife's best friend loves this movie and is a photographer and talks about the use of light in each of the different time periods and this article she read that explained it all and how poetic it makes. Just give me a linear fucking story, man. Because the way you end up with Beth being sick the whole fucking movie because you keep cutting in and around and she's always in some stage of or she's dead. And it's very frustrating because in the linear story, she gets sick, she's sick for a while, and she dies. It's a thing that happens in the family, and you move the fuck on. But when we cut back and forth and you hire that great actress from the Cut My Arm show on HBO, the Sharp Fingers, Sharp Objects, you hire that actress.
Yeah.
You're going to give her a lot more screen time. And I got really frustrated at watching Beth go from sick to a little bit sick to a lot sick to dead to a little bit sick to not so sick to a little bit sick to a lot sick back to dead. And it was very frustrating. I was also frustrated by, and I looked it up. I looked up their birthdays. Don't come at me with their birthdays. I know they're legit, but these actresses all look the same age. Whereas the ones in the Winona Ryder version, I felt like I could see 4 different ages being represented.
Yep.
These girls in this book are all these actresses are all 2 years apart, except for the girl who plays Beth. She's 3 years apart. And that's probably right for 4 sisters in a family, but they look the same age, and it really freaking bothered me. It really bothered me. The last thing I want to complain about is sudden Bob Odenkirk, who has no business being in this fucking movie. Because as soon as he pops up on screen, I started laughing.
Yeah.
So that's bad casting. This movie annoyed me, and I wanted to share my annoyance in the form of warn. There you go.
The only way I was able to sort of know that I was in a different era was Florence Pugh's hairstyle. That was pretty much it. Florence Pugh would show up with the young, like, teenager hairstyle in some scenes, and then she would show up as the more adult hairstyle later on and everything.
Yeah.
And for a while, for a second there, I wasn't sure I didn't know what they were doing with the back and forth. I didn't know that. And it takes you a while before you finally go, oh yeah, they're going back and forth. And it took me a while to like even understand that's what they were doing and everything. Yeah, I agree. I kind of wish that it was more linear as well. Because I don't think this is a story that necessarily, like, when you go back and forth, I feel like you get different context for certain scenes by doing that, like you enrich what you're flash forwarding or flash backing to, going back and forth. I don't know if I'm making any sense.
Well, what frustrated me is there's a scene, it's a Beth dies scene, by the way, where Saoirse Joe is sitting by the bed, and Beth is sick, sleeping, and Joe wakes up, and Beth is not in the bed. And she runs downstairs because she's afraid Beth has died. And no, Beth is eating breakfast and she's feeling better. And then Bob Odenkirk comes home and they have Christmas dinner together with the whole family. And then it cuts to her next to the bed waking up. And the bed is empty and she runs downstairs thinking Beth is dead. And Beth is dead. And that is some kind of a dream or previous Christmas where she thought Beth had died, but she hadn't. But when you jump time so much in this movie, I can't tell. I can't tell if that was a dream or a vision.
What I was trying to say though is that, like, with Pulp Fiction, when it goes back and forth, well, it doesn't go back and forth. It just kind of goes back and then it comes back to the present and everything.
Yeah.
John Travolta's character dies in the middle of it, but by the end of it, he's alive and he sticks his gun down in his pants and everything. And it's sort of a way of saying, even though that character is dead, he still lives on by the end of it and everything. It's sort of a statement that's being said by the end of the movie is that even though his character's dead, he still lives on in film and so on and so forth. But in this one, I took it and look, I only watched it the once. Maybe the way it goes back and forth does offer context to each scene better in some way, but I don't know. I haven't seen it enough to know.
Well,
who are the four girls?
It's Emma Watson, Saoirse Ronan,
Florence Pugh,
Eliza Scanlon, who's the sharp objects.
They all do. I can see what you mean by them all looking the same.
And listen,
age.
They're all great. They all do great acting. Laura Dern is especially great. Meryl Streep is great. If I wasn't so upset about it because of the recency bias, this would be a wreck of Warren, not a full out Warren. But I was frustrated, especially at the end, because it ends up that Saoirse's playing two characters. She's playing the author of the book, and she's playing Joe. And that's frustrating at certain times. And I wish that... Okay, let me back this up. Greta Gerwig goes out of her way to point out that the only reason the book ends with Joe getting married is because the publisher insisted on it, and that Joe would never have done that creatively. And that's cool. I like that she pointed that out, but she still filmed and showed us Joe's happy ending getting married, and that felt unearned to me. Like, if you want to subvert the actual book's ending by telling the public how she really wanted to end it, just end it that way. Don't end it for Joe happy, then cut to Saoirse playing the author, getting told, well, I'll only publish it if you make her married, and then she goes to buy a house and turn it into a school. Make that the ending. Don't give me... I super appreciate what she was trying to do here because, as a product of its time, this is not... The book as you know it is not the book she really wanted to release. She wanted to release it with Joe being single and not needing a man. And it's clear all the way through the book that Joe wants that life. She's happy with herself. And then at the very end, she gets married like everybody else. And I just wish that the movie had decided to cut showing us any kind of happy ending and just show us the ending as it would have happened if she'd have been allowed to publish it that way. And now I'm done. I've taken up too much time.
I will say that what makes it more recommendy than warny, though, is that Saoirse Ronan is one of her best performances, and Florence Pugh is great as always too. I mean,
Chalamet's really good.
Yeah, and you know, you can't watch it and not get involved in Saoirse Ronan's performance in that, because she's so very good.
Yeah, I especially love the argument she has with Chalamet on the grassy knoll.
Yeah, exactly. While they're plotting JFK's assassination,
she's like walking like normal, and he just explodes, and he's like, "I can't take it anymore. I love you. I've always loved you. Are you going to be with me or not?" And they have this big blowout. Again, give me 6 weeks, and I'll call it a record warrant. I was very frustrated, and maybe I just had too high of an expectation of what I wanted it to be when the cast was announced. But today I'm warning that thing.
Interesting. Well, I was on the fence about whether to watch it. I've never been a huge Little Women fan of the story. I've only seen
you're anti-feminist.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But I may give this a little bit before I catch it.
Watch you love it. You're going to love it. I hate you.
Well, I've got a rec-a-warn, and then I've got to recommend. So my rec-a-warn is unusual for me, because much like I was talking about Yorgos Lanthimos in the movie ad, how he just tickles my ribs and like my funny bone and all that stuff, and how I love his aesthetic. Also have said the same thing about Noah Baumbach, right? The guy can do no wrong in my eyes. He's made some of the funniest comedies I think I've ever seen. He made one of the most visceral, groundbreaking movies I've seen in a long time with Marriage Story last year. Did hilarious stuff in Meyerowitz Stories. Of course, Kicking and Screaming from the mid-'90s is one of my favorite movies of all time. So I go into Netflix and I say, I want to watch The Squid and the Whale because it's the one movie, Baumbach movie, that I have never seen. And I was like, how did that escape me? I just never had any. Part of it's titling, part of it's Jeff Bridges looking forlorn in this Jeff Daniels looking forlorn in this massive beard. Young Jesse Eisenberg. I don't know. I was like, I just never really pulled the trigger. So I did it. Hey, this is my comfort spot. It's got Eisenberg, and it's got Anna Paquin, and it's got Laura Linney, and it's got a bunch of people. And man, this movie chaps my ass, man. This movie, God, it's dark. It's darker than Marriage Story. I swear to fucking God. And it's totally marketed in a different way. This was an Oscar-nominated screenplay. This was produced by Wes Anderson, has all the bona fides. And it's about this college professor / writer, played by Jeff Daniels, who is all up his own ass, like completely folded inside out up his own asshole. And he's talking in this educational jargon to his son, Jesse Eisenberg, who starts to mimic his father. He basically says the same things, derisive against women, people that don't get it. Like, he's got a tennis instructor played by Billy Baldwin, who I can never remember he's Billy Baldwin, but I've started identifying him as the squinty Baldwin because he squints all the time. He's the squinty one. So he's doing that, but he calls him basic, basically, right? He's saying like, that people like them don't ever, go to interesting movies or read books or something like that.
Isn't this the Philistine movie? Like he keeps calling them Philistines?
Yes. And so, Jesse Eisenberg starts to adopt these corrosive features of his dad. Meanwhile, he and Laura Linney, his mom, are getting a divorce because she is fucking everybody. She's fucking the tennis instructor. She's fucking like dude from down the street. She's fucking another dude from down the other corner of the street. She's got the whole block covered. And he's like this, like, oh, well, he keeps explaining like, I've got offers from students all the time, but I never let them come on to me and that kind of thing. And so they do get separated. They go into different houses and everything. The younger kid is not having this at all. Very good performance, but also a creepy performance because he's a 12-year-old. He's into masturbation and he's into rubbing the stuff all over everything. And that kind of gets him in trouble until it doesn't. Like there's one scene of him getting in trouble and then that's it. They're like, oh yeah, you can wipe your sperm on the locker. Anyway, this is a well-acted movie that's got some darkly funny bits. Laura Linney is spectacular. Jeff Daniels is darkly spectacular. He ends up inviting Anna Paquin, one of his students, who causes a hilarious scene. She writes a lot about sex, right? It's a creative writing class. And so Jesse Eisenberg is sitting in, and she's like something about like stuffing it in my wet cunt and blah, 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 blah. And on the drive back, Jeff Daniels is asking Jesse Eisenberg in a very clinical way. She's like, she's a very racy writer. I feel like she talks about her cunt too much. And he's like, and then he looks over at Jesse Eisenberg. He's like, she was talking about her cunt, right? And he's like, yes. So it does get better. There's a therapist played by Ken Leung from Lost that really is good. There's a lot to like in here, and then there's some good bombastisms. But overall, man, you gotta watch this like in an ice bath or something like that to cool you down and just like distract you from how miserable this piece of movie making is.
Even Baumbach couldn't escape 2005, could he? He was it's just a bad year, guys. Bad year.
It was released on my birthday in 2005, and that birthday was my worst birthday I've had as an adult.
Really?
My wife had to work until like midnight that night. Nobody was around. I didn't get any gifts or any special food or anything like that. I was just sitting there watching, like, at the time, I think it was Wipeout.
What the hell?
I was watching Wipeout on a standard definition TV, eating ramen noodles on my
Of course
birthday.
you were. It's funny. You said, you said Jeff Bridges, and I was like, yeah, totally. And it reminds me that I always get this movie, even though these two movies are not the same. Get this movie and The Door on the Floor always.
That's what I thought he was talking about at first too. I had to fucking Google that shit.
I can't explain why, because the stories are not the same at all.
No.
But for some reason, I always get that and Door on the Floor.
Well, he's an asshole writer who fucks younger people, and so his wife decides to fuck a younger dude, right?
Right.
Am I remembering that
yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean, it's more about the adultery than Squid and the Whale. Well, I guess Squid and the Whale does have a lot of it in there, but it's not both of them. Like, in Door on the Floor, it's both.
Yeah.
But yeah, I always get those confused for some reason.
But you did see this, Chris? You saw this movie?
Yeah, back in 2005. I haven't seen it since.
Yeah, and it was supposed to be one of his best movies ever, and I wouldn't even put it in the top half.
Yeah,
of the
I
stuff
can't.
He's made.
I think I was excited to watch this because I had seen Kicking and Screaming and stuff like that, and then watch this, and I was like, this really isn't the kind of thing that I like Noah Baumbach for. Although he has the Squid and the Whale is more like what kind of movies he comes out with than he did in the 90s. So
that's true. It does tip his hand to what he's doing later on. I think what he probably did was catch himself and say, maybe I shouldn't go that dark on this, and maybe I can get real emotions like with Marriage Story out of clearer places instead of just miring in this muck all the time. He's become more focused, and I love him.
Right.
Miring in the muck.
All right, everybody, it's time to talk about Mubi once again. Mubi. There's a documentary on there right now about an independent wrestling league called Fake It So Real. And I find this type of stuff fascinating because it's people who sort of dedicate their lives to a struggling or fledgling league of some sort, with, I guess, the hopes one day that they might make it big. But it seems to be a secondary type of thing for these people. Like, because they want to go out and wrestle, right? They want to be at least a star in their own tiny universe, but much like if you've ever seen Beyond the Mat, which talks about how, yes, everything is staged, but it's also super dangerous, and you can, you can really get super hurt and everything. It's one of the things that I think one of the main things about wrestling that people don't understand when it comes to it being fake and everything. And I'm not a wrestling fan. I'm out here to say right now, I'm not one of these who watches, WWE and everything, but I can see why people do watch it. Mm-hmm. And I found the documentaries way more fascinating than the actual like sport itself is and everything. But to see people going out there and putting their bodies on the line and everything for crowds that are actually bigger than I thought that they would be, but they're renting out a room in some church most of the time, and it's like, 100 people maybe, that's what they're doing it for. And then, so the whole thing, Fake It So Real is following around these wrestlers and it follows around a lot of their homophobia and sometimes racism. It's this is set in somewhere in North Carolina. It's the Millennium Wrestling something. I can't remember what it was, it follows them around in their lives and what they're having to deal with. And this is all they've got. A lot of them do. This is what. And it's sort of an interesting thing too when somebody who's like 37 shows up and says they want to join the league, and they had the two guys in charge of the league sit them down and is like, all right, I hear what you're saying. You want to get in. This is where we try to talk you out of it. And he's like, let's explain. I'm going to have to explain to you what you're going to go through when you're doing this wrestling stuff and everything. And that's fascinating. I find all of that type of stuff fascinating. But it's on there right now. Fake It So Real is on Mubi. It's really good. I love that type of stuff.
I do too, man. You even watch something like a show like Glow or a movie like The Wrestler, and you get, it's obviously fictionalized, but you get a sense of the stuff that they actually go through. Even Fighting With My Family, which I caught fairly recently, goes into like the intricacies of how if you don't do this right, you're going to get fucked up, man.
Mm-hmm. Like David Arquette.
David Arquette.
Yeah. So no, I that's on the list just from the thumbnail alone. I was like, oh yeah, that's right up my alley. So I got to check that out.
I saw the most ridiculous movie with David Arquette that we should talk about not during the movie ad.
Okay. Well, I'll mention a couple just real quick. The first one is considered by many, including our friend Leonard Maltin, as one of the best films of the year. And it's called First Cow. And I've been wanting to see this, Mayor.
First Cow on Mubi.
Just because, effusive praise has been, really affixed to this. It's about a trapper out on the Oregon Trail on the frontier back in the 1820s or so. And it's directed by a woman named Kelly Reichardt, who I'd never seen anything from. And so I started this movie, and it's lush. Jeremy, you would love the scenery out there. Pacific Northwest, gorgeous scenery and all that stuff. And then I kind of waited some more. And I was like, all right, okay. A few things happen. The guy's a cook. He cooks really well. And then some more space goes by. And then something else happens. And I swear to God. Now, this movie's 2 hours, and it's not bad. It's a good movie. It's objectively good. But it's so weird because I love stuff, deliberately paced stuff like Jim Jarmusch and Stanley Kubrick, these directors that can hold a scene for longer than you think you could. But man, this one, I just couldn't get into. I was like, it's available for rent, and I thought it was very cool that it's available on a service like Mubi. It's cheap. It's only like $5 or something like that. But you can have access to this first run movie stuff was the cool thing. And I'm glad I watched it. It is just not a movie for me. I need my movies to do just a little something, just a scotch. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Conversely, a movie that does a lot and it's all fucked up is a movie called Dogtooth. And the only reaction that I had to this movie, you know how in Fight Club, Brad Pitt comes downstairs and he's in his robe. It's after he's done having sex with Helena Bonham Carter. And he comes down and he opens the refrigerator and he looks at Edward Norton. He's like, "You've got some fucked up friends, man." That is what I thought about this movie. This movie's about an isolated family. It's like The Village if The Village was like weird and fucked up, like even weirder and fucked upper. Like where people are having sex with each other within the same family and they're barking like dogs and it's fucked up, but it's really, really good.
Yeah.
It's darkly funny. There's a dance sequence in this one that is every bit as funny to me as the one in The Favorite, which Jeremy hates. But I think this movie is fascinating. It is not for everyone, but it is fascinating. Chris, I think this is right up your alley.
Yeah, I've wanted to see this since it came out, and I forgot about it. Where does this rank in the Yorgos Lanthimos filmography?
You know, all of those, and I even like Killing of a Sacred Deer. I would say Favorite has got to be first. I would say The Lobster is probably second. And this would probably be third, a little bit above Killing of a Sacred Deer.
Okay.
He's got my funny bone. He's got my toenails.
Does he have your orange crush?
He has my orange crush.
The orange crush, yeah. Yeah.
So all of that is available either in the so it's interesting. Chris mentioned one that's in the 30-day lineup. I mentioned one that's available for rent in the library, and then there's one that's free in the library. You know how you can get that free, Jeremy?
Ooh, by going to movie.com/cinemasins.
That's right. 30 days free. 30 days free. You could watch all three of these movies and then a bunch more for free for 30 days for absolutely nothing just by going to mubi.com, mubi.com/cinemasins. And then, you know what, you're going to love it, and you're going to keep at it because it's so freaking good, man. You see stuff that you would never have access to. Mubi.com/cinemasins. 30 days free, baby. Do it.
I'm going to bring up a series that came up on Shudder and is going to be on Blu-ray August 18th. And we interviewed the people who are involved with this. It's called Cursed Films. There are 5 episodes dealing with movies like Poltergeist, The Exorcist, The Omen, The Crow, and Twilight Zone, the movie. And the discussion is, here's why these movies are considered cursed. And here are some people who believe it's cursed because of this type of stuff. And here are some people who don't believe it's cursed because of certain type of stuff. And Poltergeist is an interesting one because, Poltergeist, because Heather O'Rourke would later die, because Dominic Dunn would die later on, people who were in the movie, people said, well, this is cursed. And then they would say, here's the reason why, because they used real skeletons in Poltergeist. And we got to talk to Jay Cheel, who directed it and everything. He's like, he said he loved getting the guy who did who was responsible for putting those skeletons in the movie and everything. He's like, because this guy has, over the years, everybody who's ever tried to talk about Poltergeist being cursed has gone towards it's probably cursed thing. Whereas in this case, the filmmakers were trying to be a little bit more even-handed about things. And he says, and one of the great moments of that series is him saying, look at this movie. They used real skeletons. This movie uses real skeletons. If you had, if you're on a production that doesn't want to spend a whole bunch of money making skeletons that look real, all you have to do is call this place down in California somewhere, and they'll give you some skeletons. And
skeletons are us.
You want a skeleton?
Yeah, exactly.
I can get you to tow by 3 o'clock, dude.
Exactly, with nail polish.
With nail polish.
And so he talks about that and it's like, well, none of those productions were cursed, so why is this one so considered that way? And so you have people who are giving reason to this whole thing, like saying, look, if it really was cursed, a lot of other things would have happened, or more would happen to other productions that were troubled, and so on and so forth. The Twilight Zone, the movie one, is just incredible, because they get one of the he's a set decorator or art department guy. His name is Richard Sawyer, I believe, and he was the guy who built the set where Vic Morrow runs across the water and the helicopters are supposed to come in, and everybody knows the story about Twilight Zone, the movie. Vic Morrow died in that scene along with 2 kids because helicopter crashed during it because the pyrotechnics were so bad. And I didn't realize there was footage of this shit.
Yeah.
And like Jay Cheel told us that, we use the one that, you don't see graphic stuff. There are because they had 5 cameras on the shot.
Oh,
there is one, and they showed that one on the news back in 1983. They showed it on the news. And so like, that talking to that Richard Sawyer guy and just watching him just be like, he's John Landis and I went out to this place. I think it's like the Indian Dunes or something like that. He's like, we went out to this place and he says, it would be cool if we had a shot that came in from the village and backed out over the water, and we see him running with the kids and everything. And he's like, well, and then I went and I did some research on Vietnam villages and everything, and I built the set, and we did the shot. And after he says then we did the shot, you just see him just well up, just break down a little bit, and talking about this. Interviews in there are fascinating. Him, the director of Poltergeist 3, which is the movie where Heather O'Rourke ended up dying of her condition. They had filmed most of Poltergeist 3, and the studio said, we've invested a lot of money in this. You're going to have to finish this movie. And he's like, everybody had voted not to do the rest of this movie. And that's why you had this stupid ending at the end of Poltergeist 3, where, they didn't have Heather O'Rourke anymore, but they had to have somebody bringing her out, like bringing a different girl out, not showing her face during the whole thing at the end. And stuff about The Crow is fascinating too. But really, find Cursed Films when it comes out on Blu-ray or whatever. I'm sure it's on demand somewhere too. It might even still be. I don't know if it's going to be on Shudder still.
It is. It is on Shudder still.
But seek that out. Not every one of the movies that they look at are, I would say, considered cursed. There are some aspects of each one where there's just been tragedies or something like that have happened. So like not the whole production, but just as a movie lover, I think it's worth seeking out and just hearing the stories and hearing the somebody say, yeah, I agree, it's cursed because, and then people turning right around and saying it's not cursed, here's why, and blah 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 blah. It's very fascinating. It's only 30 minutes each episode. You can get through this in no time, and it's great. So I highly recommend Cursed Films.
Is The Exorcist one of those that you don't consider, or generally isn't considered cursed? I know it's a part of this series. But
There were some I think there were some things that happened around The Exorcist.
I know Linda Blair had issues later on.
Well, yeah, they asked Linda Blair because Linda Blair, because people associate the actor with the movie more than them being as human beings. So Linda Blair is only like 12 or 13 years old, and everybody who runs into her thinks that she's the fucking demon. And they ask her, they said, did you really have to hire security guards around you around that time? And she goes, I don't talk about that.
And rightfully so. It's her right. And she was, Well, you think about that Showbiz Kids documentary, and it didn't even come close to Linda Blair and what she had to go through.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah,
know, for such an indelible performance that we're all thankful for.
I think The Exorcist did have some sort of things around it. I get after watching all 5, The Exorcist and The Omen had some of the same kind of. The Omen has probably the most uncanny things that happened around its production. They get Richard Donner to talk about it. It's really fun hearing him talk about the movie. But there's some things in there that you're like, I don't know if we can really verify that actually happened. They're like they're in the lore now, like a production assistant where somebody was driving down a road, got into a wreck, and close nearby where his wreck was, there was a sign pointing to a town called Omen, Ommen, and 66.6 kilometers away. And, there's stuff like that.
Where you're going to read in some stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And Gregory Peck's plane that he was supposed to get on, that he ended up getting taken off of, the plane ends up crashing and stuff like that. And, they're talking, the Omen one's fascinating because they're like, maybe it was blessed to be
kidding. All this thing's
Anyway,
a crashing flight is a good thing.
Right. So anyway, it's a fascinating, I think it's just worth watching. It's so you can digest that in an afternoon. It's no problem. It's fascinating stuff.
All right. I am going to recommend a movie that came out last year, another 2019er. And I remember being excited for it to come out. And then it came out, and I read a couple reviews that were just okay, and then I never heard anything about it ever again. And this is a movie called Harriet, about Harriet Tubman.
Yes.
Yeah.
Starring Cynthia Erivo from Bad Times at the El Royale. I am now convinced she has a contract clause that she gets to sing at least 3 times a movie. And I have not admittedly done the research on Harriet Tubman to know if she really did sing this much, but I love hearing Cynthia Erivo sing. So it's and I'll even tell you, the times that she sings in this movie, I can't tell if she's really singing, like the character's really singing, or if it's just more of an artistic interpretation of the moment. I'll leave it up to you. There's nothing in this movie that crushed me like 12 Years a Slave. And it's PG-13, so maybe that's the violence talking. But this is the story of Harriet Tubman, which most of us learned at least a little bit of in school. She was a slave that escaped and made it to Philadelphia, where she meets, guess who? Leslie Odom Jr., Aaron Burr from the original Hamilton cast, who does not get to sing in this movie. He is a free black American in Philadelphia that helps register escaped slaves as citizens, and they get to choose a new name because Harriet was not her birth name. It was they call her Minty, but it was something Minty. Anyway, so she's introduced then to Janelle Monáe, a free black woman who owns a house that boards new black citizens who have escaped from the South. And so Harriet goes from slavery to living in basically a mansion overnight. And Janelle Monáe even says, first thing we need to do is get you a bath. And Harriet's like, well, basically, I was paraphrasing, I'm sorry that I was a slave and that I've been running for the last 7 days and I've been in the dirt and I smell bad. Excuse me. She gives a great performance. Joe Alwyn, Taylor Swift's boyfriend. I'm convinced he can only appear in period pieces.
Yeah,
that's his contract clause. He plays the son at the farm where Harriet ran away from. And the son and the mother have had several slaves run away, and they're losing money, and the community wants to buy their farm from them. So they're basically hunting for Harriet Tubman the entire movie out of revenge. And he is great. He is a great sniveling racist slave owner. And I don't mean that as humorously as I phrased it. I have not thought he was bad in anything I've seen him in, but I have not seen any acting from him yet that made me go, hey, but this one did. And so basically Harriet she just can't live this life up here being free, knowing that her husband and her family is still down there. She goes back for her husband. He's already remarried.
Oh.
He did think she was dead. But then she realizes she's come for her family, her mother, father, brothers, and they basically, it almost plays it like she gets hooked. Like there is this like obsession. It's very much like Schindler's List in that way, in that once she gets a taste of rescuing other slaves, she is compelled to keep going and keep going. And even after the Civil War starts, she leads a freaking battalion into battle. She's one of the only female commanders to ever lead an American military unit into battle. And they free slaves in that scene. And that's one of the scenes where she sings, because they come on boats up to the shore and she stands on the front of the boat and she starts singing. And she's singing, they're all spirituals. Come down to the water. The Lord's going to move the water. I don't remember the words exactly.
Is it wade in the water?
Maybe it is wade in the water. And then there's like a 10-second pause as she's still singing, and then hordes of runaway slaves come up over the ridge and start running for the boats to get rescued. And I don't know if the movie is saying she really did use that song as a call to let slaves just in the brush know it's safe to come out, which does kind of make sense. She changes her identity. She has everybody call her Moses. They think for the longest time, the white people in the South think it's a man who's freeing all these slaves. Fascinating story. My history book in high school didn't go into anywhere near enough depth. It was simply she helped free slaves and she was one of the Underground Railroad's biggest, champions. But I was thoroughly entertained all the way through. Good performances. And I got educated along the way. And I was thrilled to see Leslie Odom Jr. show up because I saw him on screen. He's electric, even in this movie. Anyway, so there you go. I'm giving you a recommend.
It's amazing. You've got three amazing singers in those three main roles with Janelle Monáe, Cynthia Erivo, and Leslie Odom.
Yeah.
It just happens to be, by the way, we can act our asses off, but we can also sing awesomely.
Yeah.
Araminta Ross.
Araminta. There you go.
Yeah,
Araminta Ross.
Is the name that Harriet Tubman had at birth.
I want to see that. That's on one of them HBO things, right?
It is.
Nice. I have a fun one that I completely missed back in 2012, even though the poster was everywhere, and for some reason I really wanted to see it. It was in the middle of my transition from Nashville to Chicago. But it was a Brad Pitt movie called Killing Them Softly. And it's about like a hitman or like a fixer, that kind of thing that gets called in to correct a problem. The problem is Ray Liotta. This cast is amazing, by the way. Ray Liotta is like the game master in this. I think it's in New York or something like that. He's this game master. He runs all the poker games, and he's got everything set up. And back a few years ago, Ray Liotta, whose name is Marky decided he's going to knock over his game. Because who would suspect that he would do it, considering it's technically
his
his
money? This is a whole episode of The Sopranos, I think.
Yeah, well, interesting note there. So he does it, and some guys are talking about this, some lower level guys, including Ben Mendelsohn as an Australian crack addict who steals purebred dogs and sells them for profit. It's a very good performance. They're talking about it, and they're like, you know what? What if we did the same thing? Who would not believe that Marky would do this again? He did it the first time, right? And it's actually kind of an ingenious plan. And so in walks Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt says, okay, here's what I think is going on here. I think these lower level scamps are doing this and blaming it on Ray Liotta's character, but we still have to kill Ray Liotta. And the handler, the minder, the mafioso is played by Richard Jenkins in this. Another excellent performance.
Awesome.
So half the movie is Richard Jenkins and Brad Pitt in the car, like talking about strategy and stuff like that. And he's like, why do you want to kill Marky? Like, he didn't do it. And he's like, man, nobody's going to believe you if you tell them a bunch of scamps from the street just came in and shot up an established poker game. People are going to do that all the time. You want to blame it on Ray Liotta's character? We'll take him out. Nobody's the wiser. Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt. Brad Pitt's performance in this movie is a completely unique Brad Pitt performance. So, he's got generally two speeds. He's got Cliff Booth, like cool as ice, that kind of thing. Rusty in Ocean's 11, that kind of thing. And he's got Manic, he's got 12 Monkeys, he's got Snatch, that kind of thing. He's got some range. He certainly is different in Moneyball. He's different in a few things. But this is him playing on the edge. Like, he's not in complete control of everything. Things spiral out of his control, and he's got to keep spinning the plates. Where it really gets electric is when fucking James Gandolfini shows up as a fellow hitman. And, man, they just... The verbal wordplay between these two guys that have known each other for a long time. The characters themselves have known each other for a long time. He's basically reinforcements to Brad Pitt's character. And he just wants to get in and get the job done. Didn't tell Brad Pitt that he's jumped parole and that he's putting the whole mission in danger and everything. He's into hookers. He's fucking everything that moves. He's drinking himself to death and everything. And it's just absolutely great. So now Brad Pitt's got to deal with him, and he's got to deal with Marky, and he's got to deal with these little hippogriffs, or what, I don't know, the like whippersnappers over here that are trying to fuck with this thing. So he's got a lot going on. And the title, which I thought was very cool, he's talking to Richard Jenkins in the car. And Jenkins is just like, you know what, just walk up to him and then pop him in the back of the head, man. And you can tell Brad Pitt just takes a second. He's like, you ever kill somebody? And he's like, no. And he's like, it's not that easy, man. Like, they beg and they plead for their lives, and they call for their mom, and they do it. They piss themselves. They do all kinds of stuff. I like to kill them softly, which means from a distance where they don't see it coming. There's no fear. There's no pain. There's no sorrow. And he puts in that little speech there, he puts in stark relief the image of a serial killer, right? Like, he has some sort of emotion. He's like, if I have to do this job, I want to make it as painless for them as possible, get my money and get my job done. But I also don't want all that. I've got enough on my soul right now that I don't need that extra begging and pleading and me saying as the angel of death, no.
Don't you put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby.
It is a really, really good movie. I think both of you guys, it's got very much shades of Before the Devil Knows You're Dead in a much different context. It's just, oh man, it's really, really, really good.
Brad Pitt and James Gandolfini, it was a reunion from the Mexican set. I guess.
Right.
Well, True Romance was what I thought.
Oh, goddamn, they've been in 3 movies together.
Yeah, Gandolfini comes in asking him about, and it's when Pitt's playing the stoner.
Yeah.
And Pitt tells him all that stuff, and then at the end, he's like, don't condescend me, man.
I'm fucking have you killed.
Yeah, fucking kill you, man. I saw Killing Them Softly when it came out. I don't remember much about it. I do remember there being like there's something they use a framing device in there, some particular election. I can't remember which one it is.
It's the 08 election, and that's one thing that I mix up, because on all of the car radios when they're driving, on all the TV sets with the poker games going on, it's either Bush talking or Obama talking, and you hear the stark realities between those two ideologies. And I think it's a nice framing device. It's not overdone. It's definitely there, but it gives it a sense of time and place that I think is very, very cool.
Yeah, this was Annapurna Pictures. This was like, we sort of looked to A24 to come out with our sort of obscure, artistic, but in a lot of theaters type movies these days. Annapurna was that for a while. I don't know if they may still be, but they've gotten a little bit bigger over the years, and they're attached to a lot of different things, I think. So like back in 2012 when Annapurna came out with this one, it was like, yep, this is an art film for sure.
They were on a roll. They're on a similar roll as A24 is now. This was a weird production status. I haven't really dived into it much, but they were affiliated with the Weinstein Company for distribution. And then Pitt's company, Plan B, picked up some of the costs too. So it was those three, Plan B, which I think has a pretty sterling reputation, Annapurna, which has at that time a really good one. And even back in 2012, Weinstein Company was having some issues floating around. So
yeah,
it was wild. But I'm glad they got it done. That's a good movie. I would totally recommend that.
Yeah, I remember really liking it because it was just different. It was a different kind of movie, and I hadn't seen anything like it.
Well, what was really weird is that the poster is almost, I don't know if iconic, but indelible. Like you can pull that thing up of Pitt just straight ass level holding the shotgun with that slick back hair and everything. And so you think to yourself, it may be like a Drive type of movie or something where he's a killing machine. But no, he's got to figure things out, and he's got to put the puzzle together. And then he's also got to factor in his own emotion, his own well-being to this. I think it's cool.
Yeah.
All right.
We ready for some questions?
Question. I got something to say. I want the truth.
I am listening.
Okay, hey guys, hope you're doing well. Like you, I hate when movies tell instead of show. What I find even worse, though, is when movies show, then tell. My example is Return of the Jedi, when Jabba the Hutt references, my favorite decoration, Hichiwawa Wookiee. And the camera shows us Han Solo in the carbonite, only for C-3PO, the annoyingest character in the franchise, to say, look, R2, it's Han Solo, and he's still frozen in carbonite.
Yeah, that's exactly how he says that.
This question, God, go on.
What are some other examples of this that you guys hate? Thanks again for keeping the podcast going. Thank you.
Real quick, I want to give props because this question actually made me think for quite a while because I wanted to answer it accurately and I didn't have anything spring to mind quickly.
Yeah, same here. But the thing that did come to mind was in Casino Royale. And look, I know poker. Not everybody knows poker. But the scenes where Bond is at the table playing poker and it cuts over to Giancarlo Giannini and Eva Green are fucking annoying. So like every time Bond like makes a huge bet and there's like tons of money in the pot and everything, he turns to Eva Green and he's like, there's over $14 million in that pot right now. James must go all in or else he's blah, blah, blah. You know, like just telling you everything about the poker strategy and whatever. And obviously a lot of the poker strategy in this movie is wrong. But it's the most annoying part of that movie for me. One of the most, the poker in general is kind of like, you know, come on. But that right there, him like every time Bond does something, Giancarlo Giannini and in his great voice, I love hearing him talk. But like, you know, James Bond must do this now or blah blah blah. It's like you let it play.
Yeah, you want to know an even more egregious example of that is in Maverick. So in Maverick, they've got that final table, that final scene where Mel Gibson's character is playing against his rivals, essentially. There's a Japanese guy, there's a Alfred Molina guy, and there's another guy. And James Gardner goes over to Jodie Foster's character and does the exact same thing. He's like, the Spaniard has a straight flush to the 10. What's going to beat that? Now, okay, exact same thing as what he's doing with Eva Green. But Jodie Foster won her way on this riverboat as a player. She's a fucking poker player, a professional poker player. You don't need to explain all this. Like, daddy, what's a straight flush to the 10? I don't understand.
Yeah, well, you know, like, and that may be even worse than what I've come up with because Eva Green is not a poker player in Casino Royale. And you do, I guess, in some way, you need somebody to tell an ignoramus of some sort on the screen what's going on. But that's why I like movie like Rounders, which never like really revealed any kind of thing like that a lot of times. And I told you guys when I first watched Rounders, I was like, I didn't know what the hell happened in that. I don't even know what beats what or anything. So like they don't go out and tell you. You have to kind of like figure that out on your own and everything. But but when they go the complete opposite end the spectrum of it, it's way more annoying than not knowing.
Yeah, that's funny because it is. They do ride that line where Malkovich is like, "That too could not have helped you.
Mm-hmm.
You did not improve. So
yeah.
now I bet the whole fucking thing."
Yeah, I bet it all.
Lays down the monster.
Yeah, exactly. Should have paid me on that.
I'm checking, and the answer I wrote down doesn't even qualify, so I'm fucked.
I've got one a little bit off topic too.
The one I wrote down was too generic, but if you show me the Eiffel Tower, but then you put the text on the screen that says Paris, France, you are showing and telling.
Mm-hmm.
There are times where geographic locations are needed for the viewer, but the Eiffel Tower, I hope that's not one. And if I come up with a better answer before we're done recording, I will jump in and give it to you. I apologize for the question answer. I praised your question. I thought about it for a long time, and I still came up with a bogus fucking answer.
Well, this is the ideology of that sin, right? In case you confused it with New York, San Francisco, or something like that, because it's not just the Eiffel Tower. If you see the egg-shaped building, you don't need to know it's fucking London. If you see the Empire State Building, you don't need to know it's New York. If you see the Willis Tower / Sears Tower, you don't need to know it's Chicago, right? There's certain things where you don't need that.
I love it in Police Squad, which was the 6-episode pre-Naked Gun TV series that came out. Like they'll show the Eiffel Tower, and then it'll be like some completely different place that they put on there. But like they'll be in their office, and they're obviously around LA or whatever. But in the background outside the window, you'll see Eiffel Tower, or they'll be driving down the road, and there's like the Grecian stadium, in the background and things like that. They do these things where they were like, tonight's episode, the terrible worker, and the title episode would be completely different on the screen that they would show. Love that shit. Anyway,
I've got a fairly generic answer too, because I can't think of specific examples outside of one, but I know it happens all the time. And it's the zoom and enhance from an impossible angle, and then them saying, there it is. My example is the scepter, which contained the not the Tesseract, the Space Stone, the Stone of Immunity, or whatever the shit it is. So the scepter gets knocked out when Loki gets bombed from his little scooter thing, and he lands on Tony's thing. He and Thor punch and fight for a little bit, and the scepter gets lost. He goes somewhere else, and everything like that. Then Scarlett Johansson and Stellan Skarsgård look down, and all of a sudden, in the middle of all of this destruction and craziness, hey, there's that scepter. And then they quick zoom onto it. And they can see it perfectly. They can figure out exactly what it is. And then Stellan Skarsgård can remember that he accidentally put a fail-safe in there. I hate it when that happens, when somebody is from an impossible distance away, especially an old bastard like Stellan Skarsgård, who can see like down fucking 10,000 feet and knows exactly what it is without the aid of glasses. I'm sick of that thing.
That's a thing that they do a lot, where they sort of make you forget that the character in the movie can't possibly see that.
Yeah, because the camera does the work for him.
Yeah, and so like that happens quite a bit, where you're just like, oh yeah, he notices this or whatever. And like, well, yeah, but if he's at his distance, how in the world does he even notice these little tiny details and everything?
Not only does that happen, but very frequently they'll turn to their compatriot and be like, not if I stop him first with that. And so now that other person has to look over and see that thing too.
Yeah.
So that's showing, then telling, then zooming again.
Yeah.
All right. I thought of one. I actually thought of two. I've been watching a lot of the Matrix sequels lately because they've been running them on BBC. And at the end of the Matrix 2, the Squiddies are down there and they throw the bombs, and so everybody gets out and runs away on foot. and then they stop to watch the Nebuchadnezzar explode for like 2.5 minutes while Morpheus is like, my ship, dreamed a dream and whatnot. First of all, they should be fucking running at this point, but they are just watching the ship. But then they're only like 100 yards away. They're very fucking close. And the squiddies start moving towards them. And I swear to God, one of them goes, here they come. And it's the dumbest thing ever. Also, and this one tongue in cheek, there's that one episode of The Simpsons where Bart is doing stuff and we see it. Yeah. And then Milhouse tells us by saying, look, it's Bart and he's doing stuff.
Yeah. Hey, it's Bart and he's doing stuff. There's
a cow's art.
I don't know if this I don't know if this qualifies, but it's one of the most mind-numbingly obvious things that's ever been said in a movie. And then the movie itself, makes fun of it, but still it to go all that way to make this joke is still mind-numbing. In Species, there's a part where somebody has died and it's like an awful death. And Forrest Whitaker, who's the empath, comes in and goes, something bad happened here. And Michael Madsen's like, yeah, no shit. Yeah. But you're too like if you were like I was when Forrest Whitaker first says that, you're just like, you motherfucker. Of course something bad happened here.
I have one more example from my Zoomy Zoom thing. In Knives Out, it takes a while to play out. In Knives Out, Ana de Armas notices the blood on her shoe. Like the first day, right? Like the first morning, she notices this tiny, tiny, tiny little spot on her shoe.
Yeah, she doesn't notice it. It's the camera that notices it and tells you, blood on the shoe.
Oh, that's right. The camera does. Mm-hmm. And then all the way at the end of the movie, spoiling this for anyone who hasn't seen it, a little bit. Daniel Craig says, well, I suspected there was something askew when I saw the blood on your shoe. It didn't rhyme in the movie.
It's not Dr. Seuss.
but first of all, I think we actually mentioned this in the Sins video. He didn't know if that was like dirt or mud or like something like that without getting down on his hands and knees and inspecting that.
Well, yeah, could have been anybody's blood. And
she's a nurse.
And considering the way Plumber does the knife thing, there's no way that blood would have gotten on her shoe in the first place. But yeah, I think it was still bright red after like a whole week or something,
Kind of boring question. I disagree. But what is your preferred streaming service? There are so many nowadays, and I was curious if you have a favorite.
There were times there when the big three, Netflix, Amazon Prime, and Hulu, I could find myself on one or the other way more than the other, depending on what new thing that they had come out with. But in the absence of an actual original series or anything like that, I go to Amazon Prime a lot, and I don't like contributing to Jeff Bezos's huge coffers every single time that I do something, but you go to Amazon Prime and just nearly everything is there. And if that something isn't free, then you can rent it for $3. You can usually find it there. So that's why I go there most of the time. You try to like Netflix, because all the companies wanted to do their own thing. They don't have very many like things anymore that if you want to watch a movie or a TV series or something like that, they don't usually have it anymore. And they have a lot of like obscure type movies, but there's not really a lot. And so you go to Amazon Prime and they've usually got the thing that you want. So I go there.
Yeah. Well, let's be honest. If you pay for any streaming service, you're helping some billionaire get richer who's
Very
probably
true.
an asshole. And if I were able to buy everything in my life from the mom and pop shop down the road and buy local, I would do it. But mom and pop down the road don't have every episode of Frasier, Friends, and Seinfeld to purchase, which Amazon Prime did. And as soon as Friends left Netflix, I I went over to Amazon and I plunked down the money to buy Friends, Frasier, and Seinfeld, my 3 favorite modern sitcoms that I almost always have one of on in the background, including Friends right now on mute. And so between that and I have chosen, when I purchase movies digitally, I have chosen to make Amazon Prime that destination because that's where the TV shows are. So I've got 15, 18 movies I watch so much that I just bought them, like The Martian and Forgetting Sarah Marshall. And those are all at Amazon Prime. And so every night I'll turn on Amazon Prime and watch one of those movies or one of those series while I'm writing and working. And just by sheer math, it's Amazon Prime. But in terms of like, if we were breaking the question down, who makes the best original stuff or who has the best interface or what have you, there might be different answers, but that's just the one I use the most.
Who do you think does have the best interface?
Netflix, but I don't think any of them are great or intuitive.
You don't think? I mean, with Netflix, man, they've categorized it as such. The algorithm is as such to where even if they don't have The Dark Knight or something like that, there's a lot of related titles in tone, in acclaim, stuff like that you wouldn't even think of, or I wouldn't even think of, that show up. And I'm like, okay, they don't have The Dark Knight, but yeah, I actually could watch 2 days.
The problem is all the shit, the problem is all the shit that you don't see unless you search. And this is across every platform. If I want to see a sci-fi movie and I drill down to movies and then sci-fi, every single service will show me some movies, but they have hundreds more on the service that I wouldn't know about if I didn't search by keyword. So for all of them, I give them bad marks for interface just because I have to search basically every single time. But Netflix, I think, has the best, maybe what I should say is the best player in terms of like I don't ever get downtime with Netflix like I do with Hulu and Amazon Prime where it buffers for a second. So.
I agree. And you're right, Chris. If you want something, either our Xfinity On Demand is pretty good about having something, or Amazon, and they're usually around the same price too.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much, if I'm in one room or the other, that's what I'll choose. If I absolutely have to watch something. But if I'm looking for, say, a stray recommend or something like that, I will most of the time go to Netflix and be like, you know what? I could go for a romantic comedy right now. I could go for a Baumbach movie that I haven't seen yet. I could go for an action comedy. And they do, you're right, they don't have nearly as much as they used to. But I think they still do have a good enough selection that I'm still impressed. It's like going to Family Video versus Blockbuster back in the day. They may not have everything, but they've got enough. And then with Amazon, anytime I want to watch something and like it's just kind of in the background looking for something, it's always something that I have to pay for, and that annoys me. And I'm like, damn it. I could probably just find it on Netflix, but if I
probably the only thing super annoying for me is when I am searching for something is when there are multiple titles of that thing, and they'll. So when we did an interview with Neve Alger, I was looking for a movie called From the Dark, which is some horror movie, and and From the Dark is a generic title. I understand that. So like any search engine is going to have a hard time because it's going to come up with a whole bunch of different things. But there are 2 movies called From the Dark, and they both had similar like kind of storylines to them and everything. And so like the first one that I went on, like this had to have been some sort of self-published movie that I found, because it was just like if the first 5 minutes don't make you turn that movie off, then there's something wrong with you, I think, generally as a human being. It was like a terrible, it's kids partying and like just, it was all, it just made me feel disgusting watching it. And then, but you'll see, I found the right one, but you'll see 2 different versions of the right one where they have different posters and different pricing points. Sometimes there's stuff that's free that shows up as a $3.99 or whatever. I ran into that with some other movie that I ran into. It it said, oh, it's $3.99, but then I saw another one right next to it. But if you've got tunnel vision, you're probably going to be like, well, I want to watch this movie, so you pay the $3.99. But then there's this free one right next door that you missed. So sometimes they mess up the pricing points and everything. But all in all, I don't really complain too much about that stuff. The search function, when you type in 3 letters, usually you got the movie that you need. So
yeah. And I'll give a shout out to Mubi, not within the ad, because when I wanted to watch something like Dogtooth today that was not available on anything, when I wanted to watch First Cow to see what that was all about, they were the place that had it. So I've been really impressed with their library. In addition to the new stuff that you can get exposed to, I've literally wanted to watch those movies and I couldn't find them. So it's a good player. It's funny that neither of us mentioned Disney Plus as a destination.
They just haven't had enough stuff.
Yeah, there's so much limitation. I wanted to, in the background, throw on something that I've seen before and I could just, pay attention to the fun scenes. And so I threw on Endgame.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm going to go through that. All right, I'll go through that. I've seen that a million times. Oh, here's where Thor's fat.
Well,
all right. And I just went straight to the end, the end battle.
I will say this about Disney Plus, even though I haven't been, I went on there to watch Mandalorian. I went on there to watch that unfortunate movie that came out.
The Anna Kendrick one?
No, the stupid movie that came out that I can't remember the name of. Not Oliver Twist, but it's some dude's name, some kid's name. Artemis Fowl.
Artemis Fowl, yes.
I watched those two things, but I will say this about Disney Plus: when you go there, they have the heavy hitters right there. Like they know what you want. They've got the Marvel, true. They've got the Pixar, they've got the animation, they've got the Star Wars, all sitting there. So, those are probably going to be the initial things that people want to see from the service. And then you search and, like I said, I've had only one issue with Disney Plus, mainly because I've only used it a sparing amount of time. I couldn't find Angels in the Outfield that one day. Like, it's weird to me that they have this whole library and they're like, nah, fuck Angels in the Outfield.
Fuck Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Right. Fuck him in his ear. Fuck him in the other ear.
Fuck Christopher Lloyd.
Yeah. Danny Glover. Fuck him.
Fuck Air Bud while we're at it.
Yeah, exactly.
Hello, SinCast. Been listening to you since the podcast, but have never written in. It was great help to me as I packed my bags and moved from Oslo to Dublin. I believe that's out of this country.
I'm jealous.
Over 4 years ago now. I have a lot of anxieties, and having you with me as I left home after 30 years was of great help. Thank you so much.
Oslo and Dublin aren't the same place?
No, they sound both cold.
Apparently not. They might even be in different countries.
Might be. Do you have any experience with or any favorite Scandinavian movies? I'm not talking about Ingmar Bergman movies, but more of the 90s to 2000 era. Like the Danish Pusher series that gave us Nicholas Refn and Mads Mikkelsen, or some other of the countless horror movies Norway produced in the 2000s. There was also 2001's Elling that was supposed to get a U.S. remake with Kevin Spacey, but guess that didn't work out. Keep on keeping on, Marius. Thank you, Marius. What do you guys think about Scandinavian movies? We love Scandinavia.
I love it. I love Dublin in Scandinavia. I'm going first because I have the lamest answer because I have the least amount of street cred on foreign film. I've seen the Noomi Rapace Dragon Tattoo movies. There are 3 of them, right?
Yep.
There are.
And I found them to be excellent. And I found the girl with the dragon tattoo to be so excellent as to be one of those cases where, Fincher does Fincher on the American remake. And I always appreciate Fincher's direction and his eye. But that story was already told expertly. Mm-hmm. The bottom line is Americans aren't going to watch a film with subtitles. So in order to expose them to this story, you have to Americanize. Like, let the right one in and let me in. But they're great. She's great in them. I would suggest you check them out if you've seen the American version or the one with Claire Foy, the Spider's Web, Girls in the Spider's Web.
Yeah, it's got an authenticity to it that even a master like Fincher just couldn't quite get there. I don't think, even though he had Skarsgård in his movie, that authenticity of like a filmmaker that knows that location so much and knowing your pace, knowing the language so well, and the guy who played Blomqvist was really attached to that character. He wasn't a heartthrob like Daniel Craig. So yeah, I think I prefer that a little more. Nothing wrong with the remake, but I just prefer that.
I like the remake. I just the original is great. So
yeah.
Yeah, I think there's going to be some movies that you just forget were Scandinavian on all of this. I tried to look this up in a way and like sort of look up all the movies and everything, but you brought up Nicholas Winding Refn and like a movie like Valhalla Rising was something that I thought was interesting, even though it might be a sleeping pill to a lot of people, but I just think it's just an interesting way of making a movie. But I went Lars von Trier with this, and Dogville was a movie that I find just it's
Nicole Kidman?
Yeah, Nicole Kidman.
I have seen this. I got more Scandinavian street cred than I thought.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, even though this movie isn't like necessarily Scandinavian in any nature, Lars von Trier sort of adds that element to it. And I have, unfortunately, and I know these are like movies of shame for me, I've never seen Dancer in the Dark. I've never seen Breaking the Waves. I've never been able to get my hands on them. But those, I know those movies are good, and I want to see those at some point. I don't know how Scandinavian those movies are, but I do want. Dogville is something that I recommend, even though it's kind of got some hard material, like all Lars von Trier movies do, to get through and everything. So that's the one that I pick.
Yeah, it's interesting. Melancholia, I think, takes place in Denmark or some Scandinavian area. Breaking the Waves, I thought, took place in England. And Melancholia is probably from a scenery point of view and from a just a contextual point of view, seems like the most Scandinavian there.
Breaking the Waves on the IMDb, the country of origin is like 10 countries. So,
oh, nice.
So, yeah.
But all of them have the Lars von Trier feel to them. Even Nymphomaniac 1 and 2 has that, maybe it's just Alexander Skarsgård.
Mm-hmm.
Not Alex.
Stellan
Skarsgård.
Mm-hmm.
Too many SARS and
There's
scars.
too many, yeah.
Maybe it's just him. It all just has that kind of cold northern feel to it, and
yeah.
I dig it, baby. So that was fun.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yay!
We should do it again next week.
We should. That's going to do it for this week. Keep going to SinCast presented by Cinemasins on Facebook. We're also on SoundCloud. We're also on Cinemasins Twitter. And we also have a music video Sins Twitter. And we're on Discord. And if you want to get on Discord, you can go to our Reddit page. Find the link on the right side, or you can private message me on Facebook and I can give you a link there. But that's going to do it for this week. It's Chris Atkinson, Jeremy Scott, and Barrett Scher. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. Comment on our episodes on our SoundCloud page. Check us out on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Reddit. And be sure to visit cinemasins.com.
I'm telling you, there's no reason that should be funny, but it's great.
It's the politeness of, what's your name? What's your name?
What's your name?
Yeah.
Like, I want to know your name before I say fuck you.
Yeah.
Fuck you, Tony. Yeah. In the extended one, it's only like a few more seconds, but at the end of it, he's like, you know what I did? The deer's like, you know what I did last night? And the dog's like, don't you bring my mother into this. Don't you bring my mother into this. And the deer's like, I built a fire over there. And he was like, oh. And he's like, and then I fucked your mom next to it. He's like, fuck you, Ezekiel. Fuck you, Tony.
It's gonna be like Sideshow Bob, Oh yeah, all that stuff I did. And we'll be talking about this presidency for a long time. It doesn't matter if he's out or not. I can tell you all you want that I didn't do that, but they have seen it enough times that they're going to think that you did. So I'm like, look, you guys you came out here to fix it. I'm not paying anything. I don't have anything to deny at this point, So I don't remember keeping the hose, but apparently that's a thing. Keeping a hose hooked up to your spigot can cause a pipe problem.
I hope that's not true. I've got one hooked up, of course, outside by the barn, not the one on the side of the house, but it's like an old lift up kind of like spigot as opposed to like a crank, and I've got a hose hooked up to that, but I know the thing is down, so
it should be fine.
I mean, honestly, I don't think that's I mean, even if it does happen, that's got to be rare, right? Because people do that all the time.
Then it gets frozen on there.
Yeah.
I had an old guy at the the shop when my grandfather was still alive, Billy. And Billy, man, I've never seen somebody smoke more cigarettes in my entire life than Billy. He was one of those guys where he'd take a drag and inhale, and it would never come out. It was the most amazing thing. It would never come out. It was just he just absorbed it. But he got convinced. I had this 86 Charger, and it had a good motor in it, but I never really fucked with it. And I had to bring it in. Something was wrong with the exhaust. And he's like, "You've been redlining this." And I was like, "What? No." And he's like, "Yeah, you have. I've seen it. It's doing the exact same thing that you were talking about, where there was no convincing this guy that first of all, it's an automatic transmission. So I was like, how am I going to do that anyway, Billy?" And then I was like, I swear to God, I'm not redlining this thing. I'm not fucking Fast and Furiousing, even though that wasn't a thing yet. And
it was a thing.
And he fucking was convinced. He was talking to my grandfather. He's like, "Your boy is he's redlining this." And by the time I came and picked it up, Billy comes over with the cigarette hanging out of his mouth. He's like, "Want to apologize. You didn't redline it." I was like, "Fuck you, Billy."
That's awesome.
Well, how did he figure out that you weren't?
Because nothing about the transmission had been fucked with it at all. It was all in the catalytic converter and the exhaust.
Okay.
And I was like, "Bill, I don't know what to say to you, my man."
You just said so much about cars that
it's called the Brad Goodman something or other.
There is dick all over that movie, by the way. Dick. It's the old Papa Dick. It's the little man Dick.
Little man Dick.
There's dick all over the place. The old patriarch is sitting around his wife's all topless, and he's just got the dick hanging out. He's already done with the thing.
I got Madonna's big dick coming out of my one ear.
My wife's in the driveway with an ass in her cock.
Yeah, exactly. My wife's in the driveway with an ass in her cock.
Oh shit.
That's a funny story too, because I think he did that accidentally, and then they just kept it because it was so funny. Yeah. And everybody kept their face straight, which was even better.
Well, it shows how frustrated he is at that point, where he can't even keep an ass from a cock.
Right.
Yeah. And if it's anything like what you just described with old New Cow.
New old cow.
Yeah.
First cow.
Man.